Welcome back to another book review. Today we are discussing the book called Attached. It is by Dr. Amir Levine and Rachel S.F. Heller. So, there's a lot going on in this book. It is 273 pages for starters, and it is an, I would say, easy read. That's good because it's 273 pages long. Unlike Street Smart's most recent review, this book you can get through in, I would say, 5 hours. It's a quick read, and that's partially because it's relevant to my life. It's talking about attachment issues, attachment styles. So you have avoidant on one end, and you have secure, and you have anxious on the other end. Yes, this book talks also about the anxious avoidant person, but very little about that. This book, unlike every other book on this channel so far, is not Christian literature. In fact, it talks about evolution in the opening pages of the book. So, from that aspect of things, I don't agree with it. But the data that is acquired here is backed off of studies. So, the things that they talk about in this book actually reach logical conclusions. Now, how can that be? Well, whenever you study the natural world of what God has made, you are going to discover how God made the world. And in fact, many of the principles that are talked about in here are critically in the Bible. The authors may not recognize this, but that's the true case. In fact, later in the book, they give a warning about intimacy, particularly sex. And they say you really shouldn't have sex until you're fully committed to your partner. That sounds like you shouldn't have sex until marriage, kind of what the Bible says. Interesting on that. But to get back to the book, what is the book talking about? It's attachment styles. If you're secure, you are the optimal person. You are someone who conflict arises, you are calm, you settle it in a natural, loving fashion. And if it can't be settled, then you learn when you're going to readdress it. That's good for you. The other side of things would be an anxious person. An anxious person clings on to you. They want to always spend time, and if you don't respond immediately, they assume the worst. I tend to fall on that spectrum of anxious or secure. That's where I tend to sit. Now, the other person, common person at least, is your avoidant person. So avoidant is someone who they're with you for a couple of days or a week and they detach from you for a long period of time. When this happens, it's hard to establish emotional intimacy with someone, or it's hard to actually make any connection or social intimacy. These people, when you do get intimate with them in those fashions, social and emotional, they oftentimes will run away from you because it's overwhelming for that person. Again, this is relevant because this is a percentage of the population. Now, I want to be clear that this book talks about percentages of the population. Anxious people are about 25%, avoidant people are about 25%, secure people are about 50%. That's pretty good odds. An interesting thing they also noted here is that if someone who's insecure, so avoidant or anxious, is in a relationship with a secure person, the insecure person becomes more secure because you're surrounding yourself with people whom you want to be like. This is a biblical principle as well. Finally, the book also talks about how to do some conflict resolution, and this is straight out of the Bible. Speak clearly. If you just read the book of Proverbs, and you'll get the core of this book. Speak clearly. State your intentions. Respond to your partner with love. If your partner has no boundaries, run. Proverbs many times mentions, it is better to be on the roof than with a quarrelsome wife. If someone's willingly starting to pick a fight with you, don't be with that person. The Bible says it, this book affirms it. These are things that the book talks about. If I had to give this book a rating out of 5 stars, I would give it probably a 4.5 again. It's a good book. That lack of a half star is not because it is a non-Christian book. Rather, it's that there are areas that were brought up in this book, such as the anxious avoidant person, who is a combination of both anxious and avoidant, that were neglected entirely. But what I really like about this is they have examples for you to go through to test where you fall. That's how I was able to figure out that I'm avoidant. Sorry, not avoidant. And that I'm anxious. But also, about half the time that I'm anxious, I'm avoidant, and then a little bit more secure. So it works out that I have a framework as to how I am and how I can go forward. It also gives you a couple tests in here to see how your partner would interact. And that helps you to know when you're anxious and your partner's avoidant, how do you best connect with them? Or maybe your partner's secure and you're avoidant. Okay, how can I relate to them? This way you can start to develop intimacy. The book also talks about what to do if it's just not working. Maybe it's time to throw in the towel, end the relationship. The book talks about that. This is a very thorough book. That's why it has that 4.5 out of 5 stars rating. I recommend you read it. It's a good pickup. I got mine on Thrift Books for about $15. You should get it. It's a good read. Now, if you're a Christian, you have to make sure you read things through the lens of the Bible. Otherwise, this book will start to advertise things to you like premarital sex, like spending the night at your partner's. These are slippery slopes that will cause you to step away from the Bible, from God's plan. Be aware of these things as you read any book, but especially as you read a book about relationships and about how to develop intimacy that is not from the Bible. Just want to flash the book again. It is Attached by Dr. Amir Levine and Rachel S.F. Heller. Hope you guys enjoyed this book review. It's a fast read. I'll see you in the next episode.